Popularized by everybody's favorite tuber and an inspiration of mine I've been watching since the golden age, Desert Island Gaming takes the age-old question of if you could verb noun for the rest of time, what would it be? And applies it to gaming. Typically, the format entails 5 games that you have to play for the rest of your life. They can't be collections, but multiplayer or online are okay. For the sake of this video, I keep my dedicated online game just separate to the list to make it more digestible. The format's title of Desert Island Gaming is to represent an idea of finality and solitude from the rest of gaming, but doesn't actually hold any relevance to the games themselves. However, for the sake of this video, I'll just try to, involve the actual idea of being on an island just as a little bit of a joke. I can really deeply relate to this since when I was a kid, I'd often go on trips and I'd be limited to how many games I could take with me with my actual case. So often I'd have to pick one out, sort of like Toy Story. Alright, here's the actual list now. To keep things simple, for this first game I'll try to pick one that'll help encapsulate what I'm seeking. I'd like a game with a high replay value, a great chunk of content, and likely a good post-game I can never get tired of. An RPG would be an easy pick, which of course leads me to the incredible Yokai Watch series. A series that I intend to revisit many times on this channel, having most of my favorite video games ever. I'd be a fool not to include it on this list. Yokai Watch games can take hundreds of hours to complete, with lengthy, meaty post-games that make AAA games with their crappy collectibles crap their pants. Yokai Watch games, due to their monster collector team-building nature, are also really easy to replay, so I definitely keep my attention for a really long time. The contenders are, well, the main trilogy. I'll discuss one spin-off later, however all 3 of these games tackle the content very differently. The original Yokai Watch has an incredible main story and is one of the most open-ended main campaigns. This one's probably the easiest to 100%, with myself having about a 93% completion rate on my original save file. However, the game is quite lacking in single-player content outside of the other, befriending yokai. And whilst I have done rare yokai hunting as a sort of hobby when I was younger, I can't lie, this would be very boring very quickly. Alternatively, the sequel, Yokai Watch 2, has the best single-player content in the series, and is actually my most played game of all time with almost 400 hours. With an in-game gym functioning as a challenge mode, multiple daily battles, and good options for team building and online functionality, Yokai Watch 2 is by far the meatiest game in the series of single-player. Unfortunately, the game suffers from version exclusivity issues, so on a technicality I can't play the one game. But regardless, the game is a substantial experience. However, the exclusivity issues definitely cause a rift in this ranking. Finally, there's Yokai Watch 3, which is one of the biggest games I've ever played, and would be seemingly perfect for this list. However, the game suffers from a lot of bloat, and with unbalanced mechanics, it sort of makes the experience feel like a bit of a nothing burger, even if it is pretty good. Yokai Watch 2 still makes for an incredible experience, even with just the Psychic Spectres version, so I'll stick with that, just because even without the multiple version bonuses, there's still an incredibly good post-game. Whilst I think the original's main campaign is a lot more replayable, I think the post-game of the second game would be absolutely perfect for a Desert Island Gaming video. I'll go in further in my actual top 20 games vid, but for now I will be going with Yokai Watch 2. In terms of playtime, I played these games so much I couldn't possibly discuss them in this video. Though they feature elements of an open world, due to them being 3DS games, the Yokai Watch titles are very limited in terms of technological power. So for this spot, I'm looking for a game that's a lot bigger than Yokai Watch and will emphasize on ideas of exploration or realism. Much like how I praised other games for their interactivity and their responsiveness in the Gmod video, I think a game with a variety of mechanics and definitely a lot more of that simulation kind of experience would be absolutely perfect. Ironically, I do believe the Yokai Watch games are applicable to this, but something a bit more mature would be a lot more fitting. And whilst there are series such as Zelda or Minecraft that could be on this list, I don't feel like those experiences would be good enough. Minecraft itself isn't very much of a targeted experience, and Zelda I feel is too much of a targeted experience to be that sort of simulation kind of game. So I'm gonna go with a Red Dead Redemption game, and between the original and the sequel, I'd oddly have to go with the sequel. Though I prefer the original's game design and its more responsive gameplay, with its plenty of bounty missions, faster hunting mechanics, and a variety of collectibles and outfits, Red Dead Redemption 2 has so much customization options, so many ways to just hunt and experience the world, and so many minute details that it seems like it's a never-ending game in terms of its complexity. Though the original does have Undead Nightmare, and though the original I do prefer over the sequel, I think this desert island would be absolutely perfect for me to soak my teeth more and more into the sequel and spend more time reflecting on the game and being able to embrace it a lot more in a way that I couldn't really connect with on my original first playthrough. Red Dead Redemption 2 itself is an incredible game, and I would never ever talk poorly of it as a whole. But in comparison to Red Dead Redemption 1, where I want a more linear experience, I feel like generally I would prefer the original, but again, on a desert island, Red Dead Redemption 2 isn't just a must-have, it's a given. Plus, I'm a sucker for hunting mechanics in games, so yeah, Red Dead Redemption 2 absolutely has to be on this list, despite the fact that you get stranded on an island in one of the segments, which is very stupid to have on an island where you're stranded. As for the third game, I definitely need something that's a bit more gameplay oriented, since the previous two games are admittedly a little bit grindy in some places. So I need something more meaty, something that would itch the interactivity element and RPG really couldn't, or to be dynamic in a way that a mature cowboy western simulator couldn't. And of course, I'm talking about a good platformer. Whilst Donkey Kong Country 2 is my favorite platformer ever, spoilers for the top 20 games vid, again, I would probably really have to say I need to go with Super Mario 64. Donkey Kong Country 2 in itself is a really fun game, but it's so old that it's just way too linear to have on a list like this. Which is ironic for me to say it's so old considering how it came out a year before Mario 64. But Donkey Kong Country 2 is just too linear of an experience to replay endlessly on a desert island. Whilst I prefer the game over Mario 64, on a desert island, come on, let's be real here. I need exploration. I need meat. I need meat. I need to survive on this island. I don't need bones, otherwise I'll become a pile of bones. So Mario 64 has so many stars and so many different ways to approach its level design that, in comparison to the other Mario games, allows it to be more and more replayable. The other Mario games have a lot of issues, and I'll go into the other 3D Mario games in a future video, probably the Mario 64 video. But in comparison to Mario 64, I can pretty much divide it into two categories. Either A, the games have very bloated mechanics with its collection system, or B, the platforming is so simplified and streamlined, I can't appreciate it the same way I can appreciate something like 64. So, for this list, I think Super Mario 64's open-ended nature is absolutely perfect. As you may know, I'm a humongous Suda 51 fan and the Ensign's No More Heroes. I'm putting a No More Heroes game on this list. Yeah, I can't really hide it from you. This is pretty much expected at this point. It's the same with having a Yokai Watch game on this list. It's a given if you know me. The No More Heroes series has 4 different games, and, well, it's Travis Strikes Again. I'm going with Travis Strikes Again. I know it's the Black Sheep. I'm going with TSA. Look, if looking at all the other Suda 51 games, what am I going to pick? Flower, Sun, and Rain? That game's on an island. I don't want to be isolated on an island for, another game. I'm pretty sure Mario 64 has an island level. I don't want to keep on picking games that have island levels. Jesus. But, okay, so for Suda 51, the reason why I went with Travis Strikes Again is because whilst all 3 of the mainline No More Hero games are endlessly replayable narratively, the games themselves are intentionally repetitive. The first game, that simplified nature was to attract a broader audience, which is fine, but No More Heroes 2 is heavily critiqued for its monotony, and so it would be absolutely horrible on a list like this. And whilst I really do like No More Heroes 3, admittedly the experience is, I wouldn't say it's a mixed bag, but in comparison to the original, it's a little bit more, how do I put it, a little bit more unbalanced in quality, a bit more all over the place, and it's got flaws here or there. It's still an amazing game, but unlike the original, which was more refined and polished and, in general, perfect. Yeah, you're gonna hear me glaze that game a lot. And yeah, again, spoilers for the top 20 game vids. I probably should have left this video till after the top 20 game series, but anyway, point is, Travis Strikes Again. Travis Strikes Again is an absolutely perfect pick for this video because, well, the main reason is Travis Strikes Again, whilst it is admittedly a bit monotonous, it has so much variety with its content and so many ways to approach its game design, a lot like Super Mario 64, that you can play it endlessly. And that's sort of a repeating thing with this video. Whereas with the Gmod vid, I sort of explained why exploration and immersion was so important in games and having players engage with the video game world, I think something like Desert Island Gaming helps encourage players to engage with that exploration mechanic a lot more with the game design and how to approach, problem solving. And Yokai Watch 2, Super Mario 64, and Travis Strikes Again, they may not be, well, in the case of Mario 64, they may not be my favorite games. Super Mario 64 is probably my favorite Mario game, but they may not be my favorite games in the series, but in a sense, these games are so open-ended that you can replay them endlessly. The approach to level design is so dynamic that you can make your own fun, and that's something I really praise these series for doing. And I think that's the best way to have, a game be designed. I think an open world game can work, but it's got to be something high-end like Red Dead Redemption 2. It's got to be something with a lot of different features, a lot of different components, a lot of immersion, a lot of interactivity. The other way to approach immersion and interactivity in a game, and inside a player's imagination, is allowing them to express themselves through their playstyle. And the Yokai Watch 2 and Travis Strikes Again are really good at that because they both have a variety of different collectibles and ways of approaching the game's level design. In the case of Travis Strikes Again, you've got tons of death ships, and you've got 4 different characters, and plus the story itself is replayable, and you got visual novel elements, you got a variety of collectibles, you got a variety of Easter eggs. There's a lot to do in Travis Strikes Again that, whilst No More Heroes 3 may have more content to do, it's a lot more monotonous by intention for its narrative design. And No More Heroes 1, I've nearly 100%ed that game twice. It's the only game I have perfect on Steam, and I've on my original Switch save, I think I nearly 100%ed it. So I don't want to really have it on a Desert Island Gaming playing it again and again, even if narratively speaking, it helps make the game's narrative even better. Again, I'll explain this in a future video. I know it sounds a little bit crazy, but No More Heroes is a game series that's designed with replayability in mind, and also written with replayability in mind. Anyway, Travis Strikes Again, gotta be on this list. And as for the final ranking, I wanted to go with something that wasn't really a favorite at all. I could have had Resident Evil 4 on this list, and it would have been a really easy option, but I've replayed RE4 so many times now that I've sort of homogenized the experience for myself. It's a bit like Donkey Kong Country 2 now, where it's still an amazing experience, still one of my favorite games, but admittedly, you've played it so many times now that you sort of just end up always picking the best option. It's not like Yokai Watch 1, where there's so many different ways to discover the best option and the best options for gameplay, or so many different ways to engage with content like Red Dead Redemption 2. It's sort of like, an arcade game now, and I've sort of boiled down the basics to making that arcade game experience as good as it is. Resident Evil 4 Remake does have a lot of content in it, but again, that's more closer to padding like Yokai Watch 3. I don't want to have a padded experience, I want to have a dynamic experience of both immersion and exploration. So I think for this final ranking, I need to sort of just have something to break the pace. A fighting game or a racing game would be absolutely perfect, but those games typically end up being really limited, so I don't feel like they'd be very fitting for this list. So I got to thinking, I need a game that can I can just sink my teeth into, like Red Dead Redemption 2, with a variety of mechanics, but sort of has those arcadey elements. And I was obviously thinking of fighting games, so my brain was going to a Smash Brothers, for example. And then I went to Dragon Ball, and then I thought, you know the game that they keep updating with like 20 DLCs? Yeah, Dragon Ball Xenoverse? We're putting Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2 on this list. It is so utterly ridiculous to me that of all the games I would have an option of choosing, I'd go with this one, but Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2, a single playthrough can be at least 100 hours. It is ridiculously long, and I don't want to have another RPG on this list or another, open world game. So Xenoverse 2 perfectly toes that fine line of arcade game, open world game, RPG game. Yeah, it's weird. Xenoverse 2 isn't open world at all, but at this point the hub world and the levels themselves are so big and diverse that it might as well just be a soft open world game, or at least that's how I'd see it. But anyway, Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2 has so much content and so many different ways of approaching its level design, plus it's got pretty decent online, so whilst it's not my dedicated online game, I definitely have to suggest putting it on this list. So yes, I guess this is the perfect opportunity for me to play through all of Xenoverse 2's DLC, but alright, Xenoverse 2 can be on the list. And there you have it, my Desert Island games. A bit of spoilers for my top 20 game series, but I'm glad in the case of something like Red Dead 2 or Xenoverse 2, I didn't just default to my favorites. And none of these games are actually in my top 5 games. You could probably figure out what my top 5 games actually are by just watching this video, or you could probably just generally just figure them out. But for this ranking, I'm glad that I went with a more dynamic variety of games, and I didn't just default to my absolute favorites. I'm pretty sure only one of these games are even in my top 10 generally, so there you go. You're not going to get too many spoilers, and you're probably going to see videos on some of these nearby in the future. But one more thing. Well, I gotta go with an online game, and I just want to give an honorable mention to Yokai Watch Blasters. If the online was still prevalent, I probably would have put it on this list in exchange for Xenoverse 2, which I guess 2 Yokai Watch games on this list is a little bit ridiculous. But if you played Yokai Watch Blasters, you would know that it is just one of the biggest games you're going to play ever. Not necessarily because, like, oh, there's tons of content, but more so because the way you get that content is just so time-consuming. And for myself, I think that's fine because I love the Yokai Watch games, but I can see that being an issue for other people. But the Yokai Watch Blasters got so many yokai to befriend, so many different ways to approach bosses, so many different ways to approach online. It is just probably like ignoring Donkey Kong 64, which I admittedly haven't played, and maybe Red Dead Redemption 2. It's probably the most time-consuming collectathon I can think of, which is weird to call an RPG a collectathon. But man, that online, if you were there, you would know it was just absolutely incredible, and I have so much nostalgia for it. When I make a video on this game, which I definitely will sometime soon, it'll be a bit hard to sort of create a video on it, but when I create a video on this game, I'll talk about my experiences playing the online and just that general level of nostalgia I have for it. If I could get a remaster of this game, that would be absolutely incredible. Making this video was a little bit of a struggle, just scheduling wise. Whilst I managed to get things sorted out now, as you may know, I did make a post recently discussing how I wanted to quit the Streaming Sundays series. I want to make sure that these videos are out at least once a week, and that does mean that it's a bit time consuming, but keeping these videos a lot shorter but still quality is probably going to be the way to go with things going forward. So try to expect at least one video a week, and you'll probably see me over time just improve how I structure or write these videos. But with that, wraps up the Desert Island Gaming vid. Here's the list again, just in case you wanted to see it. But generally, tell me in the comments below what your Desert Island Gaming games would be. Don't just try to pick your favorites, though. For a lot of people, picking your favorites is really easy, because you guys probably only have like a top 5 games, you know. I got a top 20. There's a difference here, you know. I like ranking my stuff, at least to the very least, you know, talking about the stuff I like a lot. But generally, you know, this video was definitely some fun making, and it definitely revealed a lot to me and got me thinking about, you know, future video ideas or future, you know, these games themselves and how I could approach these games in a future video, especially like Red Dead Redemption 2, for example. How I approached that game in a Red Dead Redemption 1 video has definitely changed drastically, and man, I am so excited to make a video of that, you know, towards the end of this year. But anyway, I'll see you guys in the next video. I hope you enjoyed watching this. I hope you're enjoying just generally watching these videos. I'm putting a lot of effort into them, so yeah. Have a great week, everybody. See you later, guys.